Welcome to the Daily Plunge. We are in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verses 1 through 18. Now, we need to understand that the book of Ecclesiastes, which is called a wisdom book, is not about propagating the wisdom of humanity, but rather it is a book about the wisdom of God, which is at odds with human philosophy, at odds with human wisdom, because human wisdom is all about humans. And so we need to understand as we read the first verse, it says, these are the words of the teacher. Really, these are the words of a preacher, somebody who is putting forward the word of God. And he starts off by saying, this is Solomon. He says, meaningless. Vanity of vanities. Everything is utterly meaningless because everything that human beings do is just futile, right? It's all just going to turn into vapor. And so what do you gain from all your earthly striving, all your earthly toil? He says, what do we gain? This is verse 3, for everything we do under the sun. Now, why does he use the phrase under the sun? It shows up throughout the book. Under the sun is where you and I live. We live under the sun. We live under the limitations of creation, but God is over the sun. God and all his works are outside of the sun and therefore outside the law. You and I, we live under the sun and we live under the law, the limitations of being creatures in this life. And so verse 4, generations come and go, right? Earth remains forever. And he goes on to talk about the sun rises and sets, the wind blows north and south. The streams flow. Creation just keeps on. Time keeps churning on, right? Time just keeps going on. And you and I live under the authority of time, but God is outside of that. And we are crushed. Ultimately, we are crushed by the tick-tock of time. And so he goes on in verse 8, all things are wearisome because we never have enough. And so the eye never has enough, the ear can never hear enough. And that's because so great are the aspirations and the desires of humanity, of each human being, that we're never satisfied with what we have in the present. We're always regretting the past, what we didn't do or did do in the past, and we're always anxious and hopeful about what might happen in the future, but we do not live in the present. And so he goes on in verse 9, what has been will be again, what has been done is going to be done again. There's nothing new under the sun. And why is that? Because it's the same old Adam and Eve. Things may change, and the more they change, the more they stay the same, because human beings continue to be living at odds with God, living outside of God's grace. We're the same old sinners. That's why the Bible never goes out of date or out of style, because things may have changed, technology has changed, but the human heart is still bound by sin. And so he goes on to say, look, is there something new? Only the Lord does something new. And yet we don't remember, the history, and so we're condemned to repeat it. Lastly, he says, even the wise dies like a fool. And so wisdom doesn't count for anything. It's not going to save you. Human wisdom is not going to save you. What is necessary is really what we're getting down to. What's essential? Human wisdom just shows us that we are to resign everything to God's will, and that by faith we are saved. Well, thanks, friends. Have a blessed day.